Hey guys, this is Adam from Colorado Ski Shop. As you might know or not know, a few months ago we had started a podcast, or I started one. It's unrelated to the shop. Well, it's directly related to the shop, but it's not a shop podcast or anything like that. We're trying to be a little more unbiased. But yeah, you can check that thing out. We are going to be posting a couple YouTube videos, like podcast reviews, on the shop YouTube page here, but we're also going to make a new YouTube page for the Out of Bounds podcast. You can check out all that information. We'll have it live on the Out of Bounds podcast website. I'm sure we'll include a link eventually to the YouTube page on the shop YouTube. The shop's basically just a sponsor of this. It's not really even a sponsor. They just allowed me to do what I do. I guess they don't even. I wish they paid me. They should pay me for this, I think. But we'll talk to the powers that be, I guess. But yeah. Point is, check out outofpodcast.com. Follow us on social media at outofpodcast, and enjoy the episode. Thanks. Get this thing going. So we're going to do a gear episode, or a gear talk. This will be the second one that we're doing. This time it's for bike stuff, specifically for Santa Cruz. Santa Cruz just released 2 new bikes. They released a whole new model year run of bikes, but 2 major changes are in the Bronson and in the 5010. So I think that's what we're probably going to try to stick to for the most part. They're 2 of the most popular bikes that they make anyway, and they're pretty much completely redesigned. So we'll kind of touch on the differences between that and, what's actually changed, what's the same, what's better, what could be potentially worse, and then we'll kind of go from there. Santa Cruz as a brand has been making mountain bikes since 1994. Stuff is bomber. I mean, they pretty much just make mountain bikes. They've made a couple road bikes over the time, and they've made, and they currently make a bike called the Stigmata, which is their only non-mountain bike in the line. It's like a cross bike, basically. That's what their focus is, and they do it really well. They have a lifetime warranty on all their bikes to the original owner, and the product is about as good as you can get in the mountain bike world right now. The range of bike, I mean, they make literally like 8 bikes at this point that are almost exactly the same. And there's just small differences between each one that make them specific to each kind of trail that you want to use them in. For example, Tallboy can pretty much do whatever you want, but it's not as good in downhill sections. Nomad can do all the downhill sections you want. It's not as great of a climbing bike as a Tallboy would be. So they kind of take these small differences from bike to bike and make it into something that's more versatile, I guess. It's definitely the most versatile product line that I think exists, in my opinion, for bikes. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased. It's what we sell at my shop. But, I mean, the stuff is just for anything that we've ever sold. It's the best quality. It comes at a price tag, right? Like, I mean, it starts, the cheapest bike that they have is like $15.99 in a Chameleon in aluminum, So they're really not catering to that low end market, but there's some good entry level options. The new 5010 actually has a build kit that's available at $26.99, I think it is, in their D kit, which for anybody, I mean, even if you're a great bike rider and you just don't want to spend a ton of money, it's a good value product for sure. So we'll kind of get into the key points of the 2 bikes, and we'll see where we go from there, I guess. I was going to touch on a couple other bikes and maybe do some other stuff, but we'll see how long this thing runs. It's pretty early here, and I don't really feel like talking for longer than I have to. So we'll jump into it, basically. The Bronson's the one that seems to be getting a little more press. They had that Josh Bryceland video that came out, and I thought it was great. I actually really liked the animation that's in it, and I thought it's the best release video that they've had. I've heard mixed reviews and comments on it, like with everything in the world, but it's cool. It really showcases what the bike can do, and I mean, he rips that thing like it's a Nomad. One of the things that I think Santa Cruz wanted to make sure of is that even though, let me backtrack a second here. The new Bronson and new 5010 both have a more Nomad style link, lower link in the frame. It's supposed to make the bike a little more progressive, I guess. It does do that, but it doesn't take away the climbing ability of the bike. And everybody keeps saying, and I think Santa Cruz even said on their website, like they're calling it Nomad-ish isn't really doing the bike justice, or a mini Nomad isn't doing the bike justice. And they say that because the bike climbs extremely well. It can do whatever you want, whenever you want. And in the promo video that they did, they kind of mix it up a little bit, but it's mostly like he's hitting jumps and he's like bombing on the bike, and it's a little cartoony and kind of fun. But it's that's who's buying that bike more often than not. I think it's not a guy that's like an XC racer that that needs an XC bike. They're not buying a Bronson more times than not, unless they want a bike that they can take into the bike park as well. And I think that's where Bronson and 5010 really live. Like that's the most important part about those two bikes, is that they're the most versatile in the lineup. You could make the argument that Hightower, the regular Hightower, or maybe even Hightower LT could be in that conversation just on the 29 side, but I don't think that's true. I'm sure there's some people that that like the feeling of it and think that that's a little more versatile, but you realistically can do whatever you want on either of those two bikes. You could, and I've done it like on the old 5010, like you can literally race cross country on a Sunday and then go downhilling on a Monday. And it's like, is it the perfect bike to race cross country on? No. Is it the perfect bike to go downhilling on? No. But you can 100% do anything you want, and that's pretty rare. People are like, you're spending $4,000, $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 on a bike. You think this bike should be light as a feather and do whatever I want, but it's just not the case most of the time. Like there's still specific products, like you're using a specific tool for a specific job. These two bikes kind of blur that line more than the majority of the other bikes that I've seen. They climb extremely well, and they work good. So I guess back to Bronson specifically. The new bike has a 65-degree head tube angle. It can fit 2.8 up to 2.8 inch tires. It does come in a build kit with 2.6 tires. I don't know if I love that, but it does change it. It hasn't really been done before with a 27.5 bike. Obviously, it's been done with their 29er bikes. They make it possible with a little flip chip in the linkage. It just changes the bottom bracket height and the head tube angle slightly. Bottom bracket height, I think, goes up by 4 millimeters. I mean, it's cool. I mean, it's definitely a nice feature. It adds some versatility. We'll talk about the plus stuff and the benefits to it a little bit later in this. I like what they're doing with the bike. Aside from that, I don't necessarily look at it as a negative, but I just don't think it matters, I guess, is the right way to say it, I think. It makes it a little more complicated. It adds another feature that they didn't necessarily need to do, but I'm sure they're smarter than I am, and there's a reason that they felt that they wanted to add that to a product that is already so versatile and can do so many, and that sells so well for them. I mean, Bronson and 5010 are one of their best-selling SKUs across the board because they're so versatile and they're so fun. Like, people like riding those bikes. Both bikes have shorter back ends, so they're super maneuverable, super quick. It's Santa Cruz in general always feels super snappy. Like they're almost twitchy, I guess. They aren't super twitchy in the sense that like you get on a cross country bike and you're like, you can feel the bike like really, really edging out underneath you. I think the difference with the way that these bikes feel is that you can almost over control them and oversteer them, so they're a little more fun. As far as sizing goes, sizing is pretty true to size. Santa Cruz, if anything, runs a little bit small. So if you're 6 foot, you're probably creeping up towards an extra large. If you're 5'8", you're definitely in that medium range. It's a big range, and it's obviously totally different person to person. Like, it depends on your body geometry more than anything, I think, for sizing. It's just kind of the way the sizing works. Every company's a little bit different. I think because of that shorter back end, the bikes definitely tend to feel a little bit smaller. I've ridden an XL at 5'11 and a half on a good day, and and I think the XL is still okay for me. I usually ride a large in their bikes. Just fits me better. It's a little more maneuverable. Apart from sizing didn't really change with the bikes necessarily. That's just kind of how the sizing works. One of the biggest things, like I said, is that Nomad link that they've added. It's pretty burly looking. So if you look at the old one's probably 3 inches. It's like a 3-inch rocker link from top to bottom. The new Nomad link is significantly longer, and it's just like as if you put 2 bars kind of connecting the top and the front triangle to the rear triangle. It's definitely a little more aggressive looking, but I think it's sick. I think it's a good idea. That bike is pretty gnarly. It can do anything. Like I've said, like 8 times so far. It's 160 travel up front, 150 in the back, and you can pretty much just bomb the thing. I think for the East Coast, we're going to see more people on 5010s, which we'll talk about a little more specifically in a second, than we will on Bronson. Bronson's just kind of a big bike. If you're going to the bike park a lot, it's a good bike, but you want a bike that still functions in the trail. People are either going with Bronson or with Nomad. We see less people going with 5010 for that purpose. Bronson just rips. Like, it's still totally it's pedalable, if that's a word. You can still, with 160 and 150 setup, you can still go uphill and climb extremely well. The bikes are just fast. They're built well. Like I said, they all have a lifetime warranty. It's not like carbon versus aluminum or any of this. Like, I think the main thing is that you're on one of their bikes, and that's definitely kind of a shameless plug for them. Like, I think their bikes are just made well. The shit just doesn't break. I mean, we've had one warranty claim in 10 years that we've been doing it, and it wasn't Santa Cruz's fault. It was the customer over torquing their own stuff. And they covered it anyway. So, like, their warranty is about as good as you can get. At this point, I guess we'll talk a little bit about carbon versus aluminum for their bikes, since they both come in options in carbon and aluminum. And then we'll kind of touch on build kits. But the carbon stuff is what I like better. It's what their higher end build kits are all made out of. It's just nicer. I mean, it's just a full carbon layup. There's less brakes and frames at this point from Santa Cruz with carbon bikes than there is with aluminum bikes in terms of just frame failures. Did I say that right, or did I say that wrong? What did I say? I said the carbon's more. There's more carbon brakes. No, there's less carbon brakes than there is for aluminum, right? That's what I said? Okay, all right. As long as we're saying the right thing. Basically, the carbon at this point is stronger than the aluminum. That's what I'm trying to say. It's early. We'll figure it out as we go here. The aluminum stuff starts basically around $3,000. You can get a full spec bike. Still comes with a lifetime warranty. Still comes with a pretty great build kit. You can get it in NX or in GX build kits. It's nice, but you don't really get that high level craftsmanship, I don't think, as much as you get with the carbon stuff. The carbon stuff it's cleaner looking, tends to function better. It's lighter, it's stiffer. I mean, the stuff just rides well. So obviously, if you're skeptical about carbon because of the only complaint I've ever heard is because of breakage, but I mean, it's just not an issue with their bikes anymore. Not that it was with their bikes, but I think it was at one point with the whole industry. Like, carbon was just like, it's basically plastic, right? Like you're talking about a high-end plastic in the earlier days. Right now, the stuff is as good as it gets. As far as build kit goes, they've changed the build kits a little bit. So, like, for the Bronson's a little different than the 5010 in terms of what they're offering for build kits. The Bronson has a new S kit, like it's kind of a redesigned S kit. It doesn't come with a double barreled shock. It's a little bit cheaper. The XE kit comes in a little bit more. Sorry, I'm looking up pricing here because I don't have it in front of me. You guys are just gonna sit and watch this while I Google this really quick because I don't want to get any flack for lying to you guys. So Bronson comes in a few different kits. Obviously, like I said, it does come in aluminum, it does come in carbon, and they have different varying build kits. And that's one of the nicest thing I think while I'm doing this. This is like one of my favorite things about Santa Cruz as a company is that the build kits are usually very consistent from bike to bike to bike. You know, like they change up the things that matter the most. For example, Nomad gets a chain guide and it gets a little bit more burly components and stuff, goes up in price a little bit, but it's basically the same build kit. Build kit structure is the same. It's not like you're buying a specialized and like this one's the specialized Epic Expert, this one's the specialized Epic Comp. Like what the fuck is the difference between a Comp and a Expert and which one's actually better than the other? And there's so many inconsistencies because Cannondale will then have a Comp that's better than the Expert or vice versa. You know, like it's like, I think that shit's dumb. With Santa Cruz, they kind of set their build kits up so that it's always in the same order. You know, D, it's like R, D, S kit, XE kit, X01, XX. I mean, there's just all of these build kit options for people. A couple years ago, there was way, way less options, but since the bikes have become more and more popular, you're starting to see them kind of expand what they're offering to people. I don't know how the fuck to use their website on my phone. My laptop's not working, but for the sake of argument, okay, here we go. So I lied. So our kit is $43.99 in carbon now. Our kit used to be $3,800 or so. Basically, because they have to put a Super Deluxe on there, it's more expensive. Our kit still comes with NX. That's kind of the bigger change, I think, is that at $4,400, you're really getting an NX drivetrain, but you're getting a better suspension package than what you would normally get. The bikes aren't heavy, but I mean, they're in that 30-pound range for sure. Like, I mean, in a Bronson, you're 160 and 150 mil travel, but you need some weight in a bike like that in order for it to go downhill well. Still climbs well, but that's kind of what the program is. S-Kit goes up to $5,200. I'm not crazy about it being a different price point. I know they have to do it at a different price point than the other S-Kits because they are adding a better suspension package. You got Code R's on there. I mean, it's a good kit, and it's a good kit compared, and I guess I should kind of clarify that before I just start shitting on them for that. There's a lot of companies out there, Ibis, Yeti, Pivot, that are fantastic products that are already at this $5,200, $5,300, $5,400 or more price point for the same product that Santa Cruz is offering. Santa Cruz used to have that same program where they weren't selling that many bikes and the price point was higher. You were paying a premium. Now you're much closer to what a big brand would be charging you for that same build kit. Because that was really the only argument to buy a Specialized or a Trek or any of these companies, was that you're getting more bang for the buck, you know. And now with their warranty, with the way that they're building their specs, it's just better. I mean, it's just like the stuff is like, there's no real reason. If you're spending over $3,000, and we'll leave the lower price point ones out of it. If you're spending over $3,000 and you're buying a mountain bike, you are an idiot if you're not considering a Santa Cruz. And I mean that in the nicest way possible. Like, you're not a complete, I mean, you're an idiot, but you should definitely consider these build kits and figure out the one that works the best for you. Find a shop that'll work with you kind of, and figure out, okay, I don't really need this, but I need this, and kind of dial in that kit to what makes you happy. There's some stuff on here that I don't really love. Like, I think SRAM brakes still have a ways to go. I think the Codes are the best variation of those that are out currently, but I still think they're shit compared to a Shimano one. So that's something that I always change on mine, but people kind of do what you want, basically. While I have it up, for anybody that's wondering, the kits are both available in, like, so for example, S and S Plus. S Plus just means you're getting plus tires with it. You're getting that 2.6 wide tire from the factory. I also tend to think that that's dumb to have it listed, because I've already gotten calls about, like, oh, what's the difference between S Plus and R Plus? They look the same. It's tires. It's tires and wheels, basically. That's what's changing. I don't really love that. But anyway, those build kits are great. And one of the other things that I really like, I guess since I'm looking at it, I'll mention it, is that Santa Cruz does a good job of offering stuff that people want to buy, right? So they do these build kits and they do 10 different variations of build kits. So they hit every price point, every major price point in that higher end market. But they also split off the colors into one plain one and one bright one. I know colors is kind of it's dumb to even talk about, but I want to make this point because I think it shows how much they pay attention to what the consumer wants. Most people want either a very dark, like very subtle looking bike, or they want something loud. And for the past 3 years now, maybe 4, Santa Cruz has done a phenomenal job of offering, instead of a black and a white like a lot of companies do, they're offering like a baby blue and a gray, like it's two complete opposite. So it's kind of the way that they're paying attention to their consumer. I promise this isn't all good stuff. Like I know I'm kind of plugging Santa Cruz pretty hard here, but I mean their stuff is good, and you got to kind of give them credit where it's due. Like they're doing an excellent job. I was at the factory in the fall, and those guys like have their system dialed more than anybody else. I mean, there's literally a guy that gets paid to zip tie bikes to boxes. Like there's no other company that I know of that's doing that and that's taking that. Like there's 12 steps or something. I'm just making that number up, but there's a ridiculous amount of steps for shipping out a bike. And when they go and they build up a frame, they're going through with a shopping cart, picking all the parts out individually for each frame that gets sent. So yes, the bikes aren't made in the US anymore, but everything's quality checked, and not quality checked like, oh, it's already built up, let's check it now while it's like ready to go out the door, and if it's like a big deal. And there's obviously some kind of bias there. Like you don't want to be the one to say this frame's not good to go or this bike's not good to go when something small is wrong with it, when the bike's already built up and ready to package, ready to ship out the door. So they kind of take care of that process much earlier on. It's just, I mean, it's crazy. All their wheels are built in-house. The build kits are all picked out in-house. Everything's packaged in-house. It's all quality checked in-house. They now have like this super sick carbon lab in-house. They're expanding. I mean, this is kind of the time to get on the bandwagon, I guess, in terms of mountain bike stuff. Like their stuff is, they're killing it as a factory, and that's kind of where all that money goes to, right? Like you're paying a premium for their product, kind of, but it's going into something, right? It's like it's going right back into the company. It's pretty incredible to see what they're doing. And I think there's a few YouTube videos of the whole factory. Like they give you a mini factory tour, like a virtual one, and it's 100% worth watching. It's one of the coolest factories I think I've ever been to. And I've been to a couple now to see like kind of the insides and see how companies do things. And these guys have it more systematically dialed, I think, than anybody. And that's important because you could have one guy that fucks up the whole process. You could have one idiot in a line and something gets screwed up, right? Even if the company's great. What they're allowing to happen now is everybody to do their job, but there's also a direct check and balance system immediately after that person did their job. So there's no way the next person can do their job if the person before didn't do their job correctly. So it wouldn't get past that next person. So that's why we're seeing so few warranty issues, so few issues in general coming out of the fact they just don't. Everybody makes mistakes, right? But they just don't make mistakes nearly as often as anybody else. And I would argue that they haven't made a mistake with us, so from the retail side in a long time. I don't think they ever have. It's, they do a good job. Anyway, we'll move on to 5010. I think that's all the major things with Bronson. I think the main thing is to ride it. That's going to be the most important thing, is to get out and try one. I mean, we'll have some demo bikes for them. I know there's tons of shops. I mean, you can look on their website. And actually, when I do this write-up for this episode, I'll put up some links to the demo center and to, some shops that have demos, including ours. But I'll try to be a little more unbiased, and I'll include a few other shops that also have some. You just got to ride it. I mean, and that's what you got to decide. I think if you're in this market, you got to decide if you want 5010 or Bronson. There's other comparable bikes on the market in that range. I think, Pivot makes dope stuff. I would consider, like, in that conversation, right, you're talking Pivot, you're talking Yeti. Yeti kind of outprices themselves. I like Yeti a lot, and we may carry some Yeti stuff, so I can't say that, like, I don't want to shit on them too bad, but Price point's not the same. Warranty's not the same. You're just not talking about the same level of company, but the product is almost as good, I would say, if not as good. So you're talking in that, if you're looking at that kind of bike, you're looking at like SB6s from Yeti. You're looking at whatever, Mach 5s from Pivot, Mach 6 from Pivot. And that's really all I would even talk about in that range. I can't think of anything else off the top. There's nothing that stands out off the top of my head. That doesn't mean there's not better bikes in that range. Moving to 5010, as I've been trying to do for 10 minutes here. 5010's my favorite bike, was my favorite bike in the line before this one came out. Like, it already, to me, was almost the perfect bike. The only complaint that I had with it was that descending, it almost wasn't enough sometimes. And it wasn't quite as sensitive, I guess, as I wanted it to be, but it was bouncy, it was playful. And I've said this for a long time, so it's not like I'm just saying it because there's a new bike now. Like, 5010's been my favorite bike for a while. Things that changed, it does get that new Nomad link. It is available in Plus, which again I think is dumb. 2 new colors. That's basically the gist of what's changing. Price point's essentially the same on 5010. I'm gonna look it up again. I should have probably done this before, but it's not changing nearly as much as it is with Bronson because their suspension package doesn't have to change as much. It is. Let's see how well we can do this time. So they do have a cheaper build kit available for this one. It does come in a D kit at $26.99, and even that's available in Plus. So our kit's $39.99. Where's the next one here? S kit's $48.99, which is what it was this year, I believe. It may have been $47.99. Either way, even at the S kit at $48.99, it's sub 30 pounds. So you're shaving from, it's a 3.5 pound difference or so from Bronson to 5010. So right there, if you want a bike that can climb a little bit better, you want something for the East Coast, you're mostly riding trails like Robinson or even Kingdom or, places like that where it's a lot of flowy stuff. This is everything you need and probably more even, especially Robinson. Robinson, you could ride a fucking rigid and it's fine. But this bike does everything up until a Nomad, basically, where I think Bronson kind of can do what a Nomad does. 5010 kind of stops right before Nomad, what a traditional Nomad would do in terms of going downhill, right? You're only working with 130-ish travel on this bike. I mean, that's the biggest deal I think between the two bikes, right? Is the suspension difference. This is just more travel. If you want a bike that, it's 130 mil travel. I just wanted to make sure that I was correct. And the head tube angle is about 1 degree to 1.5 degrees difference than the Bronson. So I mean, it's a better climbing bike. That's straight up what it is. I think that's what you kind of have to base your decision on, right? Like, is if you're with a group of guys that ride cross-country bikes or 29ers or a group of girls, and you just want something that's fun, playful, twitchy, fast, can do whatever you want, but still climbs really well, this is the bike. I mean, it's straight up, like, this is what I'm going to push most people on, just so people know, like, ahead of time before you come in and you ask me what bike I think you should get. I think 90% of the people that are looking for a full suspension just to ride around should be on basically a 5010, or they should be on a tall boy. Depends on their preference for our area, right? And for those of you that aren't in our area, in the Western Mass area, the trails are technical, like they're rocky, they can beat you up for sure, but the elevation isn't huge. Like, you're not doing a ton of super long descents or super long climbs. Most of it's punchy stuff. So you want a bike that's nimble, you want a bike that's quick, you want a bike that can do whatever the trail's going to do in a short amount of time, because the chances are you're not climbing for an hour straight. You're not climbing for 30 minutes straight. You're not climbing for shit. I would argue that you're almost never climbing for 15 minutes straight, So this is kind of the bike that will be able to take what you want to do as a rider to that next level. It's 27.5 isn't for everybody. There's definitely been people that are like, I'm just a 29er guy, and those are probably the same guys that bought 29ers the second they came out. I like 29ers, like before these came out, before 5010 came out, I was never a 29er guy, or I was never a 27.5 guy. Like I thought they were dumb. I thought it was another wheel standard, and I was not super happy about it when it came out. It's changed my mind in a pretty dramatic fashion. I just think that it's more enjoyable to ride a 27.5 a lot of the time. And I guess I just mean that in like, you don't feel like you need to go and crush it so much. Like you can crush it as much as you want to crush it, right? You can go and you can play around all day on a 27.5 bike. And I think that's one of the most important differences. So from this point on, we had a couple technical issues, so we decided to cut the YouTube feed a little bit short. So for the next few minutes, you're going to just basically watch a picture of our logo for the next 8 minutes. But you can still listen to me talk if you want. If this is too boring for you, you can just listen to the audio. I'd appreciate that in itself. Stay tuned. Are we putting stuff at the end of this? Yeah, so we'll have all the information at the end of it, so you can just, I don't know, either we'll watch the next 8 minutes of our logo. It's pretty dope, dude. Chris made a nice logo. You should definitely, I would watch it for a couple minutes. I don't know if I'd watch it for 8, but it's definitely take a peek, and sorry for the interruption, guys. Bye. I guess, and you can do that on a 29er, but you're dealing with a bigger bike, right? You kind of have to think about it a little bit more, and even if it's just a fraction more, you're still thinking about it more. Yeah, I mean, anyway, it's cool. You kind of get the point. Like, these two bikes are dope. They did a good job with them. I don't really have any major complaints yet. They've only been out a couple weeks, so I don't really have a huge issue with them. I mean, Pink Bike did a write-up on them, and they were super fond of both of them. I don't know if it was a paid. I'm assuming it was a paid review, but I don't know that, so don't quote me on that. It's one of the things that they said with the new linkage system in their review of it, and I think this was on Bronson, was that they didn't feel as much of the funniness that you normally feel with VPP in some parts in like the small areas. So you don't feel like the inconsistencies, I guess, with it, with that new Nomad link. Like it tracks better, I guess. I'm probably fucking up what exactly they said to a large degree, but that was the gist. I can stop saying anyway, I just did it. It's I know Ethan's not coaching me here. He's supposed to be telling me what I'm supposed to be doing and not doing. Well, what else do you say when you're segueing? I mean, I don't even know what else you would say like into a next point. Like, it's like my brain has to process the next thing. I don't have shit for notes. I have old Bronson, new Bronson, 150 mil, 150 mil. Like, it's not. There's Jack. I've 17 words on this page for a 40-minute or 30-minute or 20-minute. I don't even know fucking how long we've been going. Anyway, I said we'd talk about plus shit. I think plus shit's dumb. And I only think it's dumb because I don't think it's necessary. I think it's overkill for full suspension bikes. I think it's cool for a plus bike. Like, I mean, shit, I'm probably going to build up a Chameleon with plus tires, and I think it's going to be fun. You know, it adds a little bit of cushion. It feels more like, you know, it's like a front suspension and a half with when you run plus tires. I just don't think these two bikes need it. I don't think Tallboy needs it and Hightower needs it, but I mean, we sell them and people like them. And I think for riders that are new, riders that want a little extra help, older riders, for some reason, we see ladies buying more plus bikes than we see men buying them, I guess, at any age. And I think that's more to do with them being new at it. I don't think it's a skill thing at all. I think it's just that they're newer riders. For newer riders, I think there's a lot of benefits. It's like kind of riding a plus bike is kind of like wearing a life vest. Like, that's basically what it is. You're getting extra flotation on the trail. You can mow over whatever the fuck you want, and it's like there's no extra work, you know? Like, I think it's cheating, and I told people that a couple years ago, and I had some customers that were like, it's not cheating, I really like mine. And you know what? If you like it, great, buy it. I'm not telling you not to buy it, and I'm definitely not the law with it, you know? So you should buy what you want to buy. But I just think that going from a 2.4 tire, which is the regular setup, or a 2.35 to a 2.6 is like, okay, we're talking 0.3 of an inch difference in your tire. Yes, it makes a difference. Does it make enough difference for me to want it? As a customer, I guess we'll find out. You know, I think we only ordered 1 or 2 in that build kit, and they're like, and I'm not going to push them. So maybe Dave or somebody else will push them. I don't know. Maybe people just want them. Maybe I'm wrong. You know, maybe everybody will want the plus one. But with Tallboy and Hightower, what we saw was that initially people thought it was cool, right? You know, and they were all about it. And then they rode it and they were like, okay, it's like I have a lot of traction, but no traction. Because you're kind of riding on this bubble. You know, like you're not really in the dirt so much. Kind of floating on top of it. It's interesting. Like I said, I think it works with hardtails. I just don't like it for these bikes, and I think it just adds another bit that you have to worry about. It's not, the flip chip thing is not a big deal. It's not like Scott's where it's like you got to flip the whole fucking thing and it's like a whole process. It's not like that. It's simple. Like, I mean, it's literally one little piece. You just go, and that's it. Like, you just take it out and you turn it, and that's all that happens. It changes your head tube angle and it changes your bottom bracket height, and that's it. Like, so that it's better for a plus setup, more ideal for a plus setup. I didn't see anything about you having to change the fork. I'm going to look and just make sure here really quick. Yeah, it doesn't say you have to change the fork on this. Whereas on the Tallboy and Hightower, that was one of my biggest issues with it, was like they were saying that you had to change the fork on it from a 130 or a 140 or whatever when you're changing it over to plus, from 29er to plus. I think that's dumb as shit. Like, nobody's going to buy a whole new fork setup or change their fork out to have this bike that does both. Almost everybody is just flipping the chip, buying 2 wheel sets, and that's it. Like, that's all you needed to do. It wasn't like your head tube angle's fine. Like, it's not like we're not changing it 5 degrees. Like, it's not like a totally different, you're not riding a child's bike versus an adult bike. It's not. I thought that was dumb. It still exists, so I probably shouldn't say it's that dumb. I just don't think that it's as important as it was made out to be, I guess. And that's my own opinion, I guess. I could be wrong. I'm sure if I talked to one of the engineers, they'd be like, no, Adam, you're an idiot and you're wrong and this is why. And, but from what I got out of them when I did talk to them, it's like, yeah, change it if you want to change it. This is just the best recommended setup. It's just like they say don't run coil shocks on their website. It's like we don't recommend a coil shock for this bike because our suspension is more biased towards an air valve system. And a coil won't give you the best performance out of the bike. It doesn't mean you can't run I mean, how many people have we all seen on social media or on Pink Bike or on whatever that have Bronsons or 5010s or Nomads with coil shocks on them? I mean, it's just, they're straight up, like, people like the way they look. They like the feeling of it. It's your own preference. Do what you want. It doesn't, like, you're not allowed to do it. You can do whatever you want. For these bikes, you don't, for 5010 and Bronson, you don't have to change that. So that's a nice thing for sure. If you like plus, I don't not like you because you like plus stuff, but it's, it makes, so I guess we can talk about the benefits to it really quick. I know we mentioned it, but like, I think for the right person, it can make a world of difference, right? If you're a newer rider, like, and you want to get good fast, I think riding plus is a great way to do it. I think it's, it's like riding a fat bike almost, because you have so much suspension, so much tire, you're just kind of plowing through stuff. So you're just not dealing with all the inconsistencies in the trail that get people hung up initially on a bike. I don't think it's as much of a big deal. Like, but if you're coming from a 26er and you're getting caught on everything and like, the smallest rock or root is throwing you off your path, a plus bike will totally change your life. But so would a 27.5, or a 29 or full suspension. So I don't know that it's enough of a difference. I said I was going to talk about positives, and I'm fucking shitting on it again. The positive is that it makes your life easier. If you want your life to be that much easier, go for it. It definitely makes almost everything easier. Other than climbing, it's not, obviously it is easier to get some traction. You don't get stuck on stuff on the way up, but it's not as outright fast. Obviously, because there's more tire volume on the ground, or more tire, whatever we're calling it, on the ground. It's It's interesting. I don't know how important it's going to be. Maybe I'm wasting 10 minutes by even talking about it at all, and nobody's going to buy a single one, and we'll move on from it. And then next rendition of it, they won't have any plus options at all. Doubt it. If they made one, there's probably people looking for it. But there's people looking for fat bikes, and they haven't made a fat bike yet. Fingers crossed. So we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. Basically, the build kits are about as good as they can get. I think that on both bikes, they're pretty dialed through all the way. It'll be important to see how the next couple months the bike's received. I think that's going to be the bigger deal. All these new reviews and new video plugs and all this stuff is like, it's great, but it's new. Whenever something's new, it gets a whole bunch of press and a whole bunch of stuff. But that's kind of the gist. So I think that's really all I have anyway. I think we're gonna wrap this thing up here. I'll include on the write-up or underneath the YouTube thing or whatever we're doing with this camera here. I'll include all the information on the bikes. I'll include spec sheets. I'll include a couple links to reviews. I'll include a detailed write-up of what I think of the bike in writing, so you can quote whatever I want or whatever I said, and we'll kind of go from there. Definitely make sure that you follow us. I guess I should clarify where it's going. So if you want to see the YouTube video, which is me just playing with my phone and talking into this microphone, it's really not that interesting. It is going to be on the Colorado Ski Shop YouTube page until we have a YouTube page running for us. So definitely check that out. Definitely check out the other reviews that we have up there. If you want to see me ramble about some of the other bikes, I did one on my old 5010, so you can kind of compare what I said about my old 5010 to the new one. It's cool, man. I like being able to talk about all the different bikes. I mean, it's fun. I don't know. Like, I like doing it better than like just sitting there and doing nothing, I guess. I don't know. It's not, I'd rather be riding, but I'm a little crippled still, so I'll be a couple months before I'm actually riding. It's but yeah, that's the gist. So definitely check that out. Colorado Ski Shop is the YouTube page, but you can check out the information for this podcast episode on iTunes, on Android Store, apparently on what's that thing called? iHeartRadio. So we're on iHeartRadio. I don't know if that's significant at all, but we're on iHeartRadio. Definitely follow us on social media at Out of Podcast. Check out our website and all the new gear and merch that we have on the website. There's only 2 things on there right now, but hopefully by the time this drops, there'll be 4 or 5. And then, check out the blog, check out all the new posts, and that's basically it. Thanks for listening to me ramble for a bit. All right, bye.